What it is, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a hot minute. Been really just working on the building, as you can see behind me. We now have some insulation in here. And we actually had the heater on, but it ran out of kerosene. So for right now, until I get a mini split, I use this kerosene radiant heater, which puts out really good heat when it has fuel in it. But unfortunately, it's out of fuel. But it's not that bad in here, actually. It's pretty decent. So tonight, the J10 Jeep pickup, which I know some guys want to see some content on, it's outside. Because I got to work on my sister's car. So you got to take care of your baby sister, even though she ain't a baby no more. It's a 2011 Honda Pilot. She's got a bunch of check engine light codes that we're going to fix. We got some misfire codes. We've got power steering cooler return line leaking. So we're going to make up a new metal line. Try to help Rob save some money. We're going to use some copper nickel line and make up a new line to fix that, repair that. It's got about 180,000 on it. It's never had plugs. So we're going to put a set of plugs in it, clean throttle body, do the basic stuff, and clear the light, let her have it back. But when I pulled the front wheel off to look at the power steering leak, her brakes were almost metal to metal. So it kind of brought me to a little thing that I wanted to discuss on the channel this evening as I was doing these brakes. Now, I have the luxury of owning a brake lathe, so I'm going to turn all the rotors, which actually I already did the front brakes on this vehicle. I just got done cutting this one rear one when I decided, oh, I better make a video for the channel. So I already did my front brakes, cut the rotors. And like I said, I have the luxury of owning a brake lathe to where I can cut the rotors and save my sister some money. Not everybody has a brake lathe that they're disposable. And what shops charge to cut rotors, sometimes it's cheaper just to buy rotors. And I understand that. But we had no brake shake. We didn't have anything crazy like that. So I just took a little bit off the rotors, cleaned them up, trued them up, and put this little lines you see. We always call that a non-directional cut. And all that is you take the biscuit tool while the rotor's spinning, and you just kind of go over it. And what that's supposed to help do is help seat the pads and hopefully get rid of brake squeal when the pads first break in. And all you do is you take your biscuit tool while the rotor's spinning on the lathe and yada, yada, yada. Some shops do it, some shops don't. Some guys say you should, some guys say you shouldn't. Some guys just use a piece of sandpaper. There's a million ways. Everybody has their own way. I have been doing that for 30 years and haven't had an issue. Every now and then we all have some kind of brake squeal, but for the most part, I've never had a problem when I do that. But it brought me to something I was thinking about as I was cleaning up the caliper bracket. Now, a lot of guys will do a brake job and, they'll put a new rotor on or they'll have somebody cut the rotors and they go, you push the caliper back and they put the pads on and they think that's the end of it. Well, there's actually a little bit more to a brake service job that a lot of guys leave out. Now, there's been a lot of talk on the internet lately because I follow the internet. I watch TikTok, YouTube. A lot of guys talking about open the brake bleeder up before you push it back. I've been pushing calipers back with a tool or a C-clamp or a screwdriver, however you want to push the caliper back. I actually have several different types of tools for pushing the caliper back. That's one. I have several other tools at work. I have this one here, which just started leaking hydraulic fluid out of it. Pretty basic. You crank this in, and as you crank this in, it pushes these out. Let's see here. I'll show you as I go back with it. It just started leaking today, so it looks like we'll have to turn this in for a warranty. So that's me loosening it up, and as you can see, a little hydraulic cylinder. But it just started leaking tonight, literally. So I had to go back to the old one. Believe it or not, this is a Snap-on product. As crude as this thing looks, this is actually Blue Point, which Blue Point is Snap-on. I've had this for 100 years. It originally is designed to do Ford truck dual piston caliper, but you can use it on a lot of other stuff because I have, and I still do. You know, anything to get the caliper piston back in your caliper. As you can see, I've already got this one compressed in. Now this vehicle has, I've already bolted the rotor on. The parking brake is inside the actual rotor, so don't have to worry about the caliper where you have to twist it in as you go back on some disc brakes. But the point that I wanted to get to on this little video that I see a lot of guys leave out is right there. You can see I've already cleaned them up. Okay, so a lot of calipers today. We have this Jimmy John here. Of course, I'm working over here on this filthy tool cart. I need to clean it off and put some stuff away, but we'll deal with it. Let's open this bad boy up. Let's not throw it on the floor. Let's open it up. So as you can tell, this video is in live time as I throw stuff on the floor. Okay, so you get these little metal shims, and they clip on your caliper bracket like so. Okay, simple. Your brake pad rides in there. Let's see here if I can turn it around. So what a lot of people, and I see a lot of problems with brakes, especially on disc brakes, on late model, everyday vehicles. We're not going to talk about hot rods or any other crap. We're going to talk about late model. 90% of your vehicles today have these. What I see when I get a brake job that somebody else has done, where they complain about a brake pull, pads are smelling. This thing's had 10 sets of brake pads. It keeps burning them up. See how I cleaned inside this area here? I don't care what you use. Some guys use a file. Some guys use wire wheel. You need to get that down to clean metal. I use my biscuit tool, and I go right in here. See how I'm cleaning it up? I don't go crazy. I'm not grinding it to bear it. You know, I'm not grinding it to change the size of it. What I'm doing is I'm trying to get all that rust off of there. It's kind of hard to video this as I'm doing it, but you get the point. You see where I got it nice and shiny inside there? That's where these shims live. Now, if you don't clean all that rust up, what's going to happen is when you put the pad in here, when the shims are in there, this pad's going to jam up. And this pad needs to float in here nice and free and smooth. If it doesn't, that'll burn pads up, that'll wear pads funny, that'll give you brake squeal, give you all kinds of weird problems. I see guys, because I've worked at a lot of shops, I see guys grab their biscuit tool and start grinding away at the pad. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? I go over there and school them, and I find out that underneath that metal shim is all pure rust. And the rust builds up, and it jams the pad up. Guys be over there filing away on the pad. Stop. If you got good pads, which these are good pads, if you've got good pads, there's no need to grind them. Now, I will say, your super, super dirt cheap $12 pads from, I'm not going to say from any parts store. I don't care who you get them from. The super duper duper cheap ones, you might have to grind on them a little bit because they're just cheap. But if you got a good brake pad, there's no need to grind on the pad. If all of this in here, you can see it, I've got it under bare metal. Now, when that's done, I like to, now again, everybody has their preference. Some guys like to use Never-Seez. Brake grease, I don't care what you use. I personally use Sil-Glide from Napa. I've been using it for 30-some years. Or as long as I can remember anyway. What I'll do is, and this is exactly what I do, I take my Sil-Glide and I put a dab, just a dab. Now, that might be a little bit more than I need. I don't know if you can really see in there. It's really kind of hard for me to see. But I'll put a little bit in there and I'll smear it around. I need a little bit more. I'll just get a little bit off of there. And what I'll do is I'll put it in here. Put it all over the parts that I just cleaned up. Again, just a dab. You ain't got to go crazy. And I've been doing this since the turn of time. Then I will take my metal shim and snap it on. So now the grease, or my SoGlide, is underneath of this metal shim. Now, is it going to stop it from rusting? No, it's still going to rust. Especially if you live on the East Coast like we do, and we live at the beach. But what it's going to do is it's going to help it. By the time this builds up with rust again, it's going to need brakes again. Then the next thing I do is we take and pull all of our pins out. And this is a step I know a lot of guys miss because I find a lot of these pins frozen. We'll take our pins out. These are in really good shape. They're not all rusted up. You know, if they're rusted up, you got to clean them out. These are just got the old grease on them. I wipe them off, and I put some SoGlide on them. I put a liberal amount on. I'm not scared of it. And I put it back together. And if I get a little spooge out of there, I get a little spooge. By cleaning them up, like I said, these ones are actually in really good shape. They're not all rusted up. They just got the old grease on there. I don't go crazy and clean the inside of the grease out. I just get the pin itself cleaned up, and I put a liberal amount on there. I'm not scared of it. Put it in there. And I got a little bit of spooge out of there. I'll wipe that off. And I'll make sure that they go in and out. Make sure the boot goes back on. You see the boots on there. And now you're ready to put the bracket on. Now, on some of these foreign cars, Japanese cars, whatever you want to call them, like the Hondas, especially the Nissans and your Hyundais. Hyundais are the worst. Any Hyundai from 2000 up. The bolts that hold these brackets on are known. I see one. Again, we're working here in real time today, fellas. Because I'm dropping stuff and losing stuff left and right. What I like to do is you can see that bolt's rusty. When that bolt's in there, there's a little bit sticking out past there. Again, your Hondas and Nissans, not so much a Honda, but a Hyundai. These things get extremely rusty. I always torque them and make them sure that they're set tight, nice and tight. But I like to put a little bit of this SoGlide grease on there when I put them back together. Because they get so rusty that a lot of times when you go to take it back apart, it fights you. And like I said, your Hondas and your Nissans are really bad for it. Not so much these vehicles, but this truck, she does use it on the beach, so I will put it on there. So the next time I got to do it, or the next time my father does it, we're not fighting it. There's our other one. We're not fighting. I think my dad did the brakes on this. Now, he owns a shop. He's a mechanic himself, but he's 40 miles north of us, or 50 miles north, I think. Maybe even a little more. But anyway, he's north of us, so it's just easier for me to work on it for my sister because she's only 10 miles up the road. And that's what we'll do. So now this is ready to go on the car. But I just wanted to share that tip with you guys. Maybe that'll help you guys the next brake job you do. A couple steps that a lot of guys always overlook, they miss. When you're doing just a basic brake job on your everyday vehicle. We all have hot rods and junk, but we all need a regular vehicle to go back and forth to work or run around town. We're not going to drive our hot rod every day, right? Or our lifted truck. So we all have some kind of regular beater vehicle. But I've seen this time and time again where guys won't clean underneath of these shims. Some guys just don't even know that the shims are removable because they're so rusted that they just look like they're part of the caliper bracket. They just don't know. And I'm not picking on the guys that don't know. I'm just trying to help you guys go past that. So maybe that'll help you out on the next brake job you're doing on your commuter vehicle, or your daily, or your wife's car, or girlfriend, or your whatever. So that pretty much sums up what I've been doing this evening. And last night was brought it in and checked it all out. We're gonna put some, like I said, we're gonna put some plugs in it. And she's going to need to do a maintenance timing belt, but I don't know if it's in the budget for her or not. We spent enough money tonight on parts to get it to where we are today. So I just wanted to share that on the channel. I actually did spend some time on the Rat Wrecker, because I know there's been some guys wanting to see some content on the tow truck. You know, this is the one we put the Crown Vic subframe in. Spent some time knocking it apart. We got everything welded up. We do need to take our subframe itself back out of the truck, because we've got our boxes welded in up here, but we've got to weld across here, and obviously this subframe tower is in the way. That's all part of the Crown Vic. But while it was still bolted on the truck, I thought I'd take some time and actually just unbolt the suspension from the truck while this was in the truck and make it easier to get it apart. So I got the passenger side all knocked apart last night. I'm probably gonna go in the house here soon. Maybe tomorrow I'll knock the driver's side apart, and then I can take this aluminum cradle back out of the truck so I can weld across in here and down on the front side and on the bottom. It's got to be welded. Once that's done, I'm going to finish cleaning the rails up, and we're going to get some, I got to fix this hole here, our body mount for our radiator support. I need to repair that. Once that's done, I'm going to paint these rails, and we're going to start putting this thing back together for the final time. So I'm picking at it when I can. I got it, like I said, I got it apart last night. I had bought parts for it last year, so it's got all new struts, upper control arms, ball joint, new tie rod ends, bought all that stuff, but I just found out the wheel bearings are no good in it either. So I need to buy 2 hub bearings, and I think I'm going to get the kit. Outcast Custom sells a kit to lower the strut in the control arm. I believe it's 1.5 inches to 2 inches, something like that. I got to relook it. I don't remember how much it lowers it. But while it's apart, I'm thinking about just go ahead and add it. Now, this thing already sits pretty low. Our front bumper is about this far off the ground with no motor in it. So we're going to put a 351 Cleveland. We're putting the truck trans back in it, and we still don't have the front sheet metal. So I'm not quite sure. I weigh 240 pounds, and when I sat on it, it brought the bumper down, I want to say about 3.5 to 4 inches. This front bumper is off the ground. I'd like to get it another inch or so lower. I think that's about where I want to be with the truck. And then once the front is set, that's when we're going to lower the rear. We're going to figure out what we're going to do in the rear. Now, the rear of this truck, I may just take, the leaf spring stack is pretty thick. I'm thinking about taking a bunch out of the stack and leaving maybe 3 springs in it, and the weight of the body will bring the truck down. If it doesn't sit where I want, then we're going to 4-link and coil over the rear of this truck. But let's get the motor in it, get some of the sheet metal back on it, get some weight on it, and see where it sits. And then we're going to take some springs out of the back of this old girl, and we're going to see where she's going to sit. So that's where we're at with this project. I know some guys have been wanting to see what's going on with it, where we're at with it. That's about where we're at. We did, I already put them away. I did pick up some West Coast mirrors, old school style, I found on Amazon. Pretty inexpensive. I test fit one the other night. It's going to fill these holes right here. It's got a bracket that'll go over these and then go up here. So unfortunately, we're going to be stuck with whatever they had bolted there, and we're just going to leave it. The whole idea was to leave the truck the way you see it. We're going to remove the flaky paint, lightly scuff the whole truck. We're either going to clear it, or we're just going to buy some Poppy's patina and go over it with that. I don't know yet. We'll see what product works out for us the best. I got a 66 F250 that I've owned for years. And in the spring, we're going to put some Poppy's patina on it, and we're going to try that product out and see how it works. If I like it, then we might use it on this truck too. I don't know. We're going to try it on that truck first. And then if it looks good and it works out like it says it does, then maybe we'll use it on this truck. If not, we're just going to squirt this thing with clear. maybe a satin clear. I don't know if I want it super shiny, so I might just do a satin clear because they do sell a nice satin clear, which I think would look perfect. It'll give the truck just a little bit of a sheen, but without that deep shine, but also preserve it so that it doesn't get any worse than what it is. My biggest thing is I don't care if it gets any worse here, but I don't want to be all cleaned up at a car show and you're leaning against it, you know, talking and you go, that's what I don't want. So we're moving. We're finally inside the shop with the truck. We have not worked on the truck, and well, we did work on it a little bit this summer, but for the most part, we haven't really touched the truck since we moved. We did, I guess we could say we did work on it a little bit because we did cut the old suspension out. We did set up the cradle for the Crown Vic, but we haven't touched it since that was probably beginning of summer. So we hadn't touched it since then, but we did get it inside the shop. And as you can see, we finally got the ceiling up over here. We didn't have a ceiling. We've got a ceiling up in here. We've insulated the whole building. We ran out of insulation. We did manage to do part of the bay door, and the other bay door still isn't got any insulation on it. So maybe this weekend I'll get out and I'll buy another roll. One roll will do that door and finish this door. And then we got to readjust the springs for the weight in the doors. But I can tell you right now, it's cold outside. It's like 47 degrees in here is what the thermometer said, which isn't bad considering it's snow outside today. So not too hateful. So look, I think I'm going to end the video on that note because I want to spin this other rotor for the other side here on the brake lathe, so I can at least have the brakes done on this car this evening. And then tomorrow I'll put plugs in it, make the return line for the power steering, and give the car back to her so she can drive it. And then we're going to see what codes reoccur, but then she can at least have the car back and it'll be drivable again. And then we're going to move on to something else. We got a van out there I got to put a motor in. I got an S10 pickup I need to finish up. And I got a Ford Ranger out there that needs a motor. So we got a little bit of work to do and get finished up and wrapped up around here. But we're moving forward with projects. As you can see, we are fully insulated. And I'll tell you what, it makes a big difference. Big difference. I walked out of the house Friday morning. Everything had frost on it. I looked out the garage and almost the entire roof was covered in frost. So that's a good sign. That means no heat loss. Now we don't have this attic space fully insulated on each side. So we're going to lose a little bit of heat loss there until we get it fully insulated. I've only got about part of this side. I think up to about that yellow sign inside, it's insulated. This section down here is not, and the other side's not insulated. But it does have a ceiling. So when you do run the heater, it does make a difference. It's chilly, but it's not so cold that you don't want to work out here. This time last year, you couldn't be standing here without seeing your breath and just be like, this is way too cold. When I bought this house with this building was just tin on it's just a pole building. So it just had the tin. That was it. Nothing. No walls. I mean, you look there, that's all walls. It's all insulated, and that's 5/8 plywood on all the walls. The only reason I used the 5/8 plywood was I had a whole pallet of it. But it really made a difference. This building's really nice and tightened up. And every crack and seam I caulked. I went a little crazy, but I'm trying to make it so I have no drafts. I want to be in here and be comfortable because we're going to put a mini split in with heat and AC, and I'm going to leave the heat on while I'm at work. So that when I come home and come out to the garage, it'll be a nice 55 degrees or whatever I set it at. That way all this metal stays warm. And if I want to crank the heat up a little bit, the heater don't have to work as hard because it's already going to be, all this metal will already be nice and warm. So that's the whole idea. So I'm going to end the video there, and I'm going to holler at you a little bit later. And hopefully we'll get on to something a little bit better than just daily driver stuff. Maybe you guys got something out of that, and it'll help you out on the next brake job. Holler at you, boy.